morning, it's Shanna. This week I'm going to do, instead of the typical August wrap up, which I have not yet done, or a September wrap up, which I may do depending on what happens this month. But instead I'm going to just kind of do an end of summer wrap up because a lot happened in August and September and I really just wanted to talk about it. Literally I have been so excited and I haven't had a moment to myself here at the house to do it. So super looking forward to doing it. So as usual, we'll talk about decks that I used, or deck because there was just one for August at least. Decks that I brought in, things I did, rituals, and a little ritual type explanation at the end. So stick around for that because that's my most excited part. That's the thing I'm most excited to talk about. So decks I used in August was the Herb Crafters. I feel like there may have been a couple others sprinkled in for a reading or two, but generally speaking, it was just the Herb Crafters. That's the only one I wrote down, and I'm pretty good about writing stuff down as I go. So the others were not noteworthy, I guess. So much so that, I need to grab a coaster. So I used Herb Crafters so much so that by the end of August, I was actually really sad to see it go. I knew it was time because, I want to move on to other decks. Spooky season is coming and I just, I want to be able to cycle through the decks I have and use them. So I created, and I'm pretty sure I shared. I'll put it on the screen regardless, but I created a spread that was sort of a releasing ritual for the Herb Crafters that I can use for any deck, any season. If I'm having a hard time letting it go, or, even if I'm not having a hard time, just kind of that ritual of releasing it, putting it away in the box, putting it away in the cupboard until the next time that season comes around. So, I have the window open, so if you can hear barking or birds, apologies. Okay, so as far as used, that was really the only one. So now, I know I did a whole recap of the half marathon I did in August in July's wrap up, but just to touch base on that, I did do the half marathon. August came, I ran it. It was incredible. It was a lovely experience, and I've run 3 times since, so I'm really struggling to get back into the routine of running. I've tried, kind of putting together multiple running routines or schedules for myself, and I haven't really found one that's stuck. So we're trying. We've not let go of the idea that I want to run through winter. So winter here is very mild, but very wet, and I don't actually mind that. I prefer running in the rain. That's my favorite season or weather to run in, which, is probably not popular opinion, but it is what it is. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee, you guys. It is still way too hot. Okay. So the next thing that was noteworthy for August was that my daughter and her husband moved closer. They have lived sort of outside of town, about 45 minutes since they got married 2 years ago. So having them move closer was a lot of, I want to say it was a lot of fun, but we haven't really hung out a ton. We're actually going to hang out today, so I'm really looking forward to that. But the biggest thing that I'm happy, not the biggest, I'm glad they're here. I'm glad to have them closer. I'm glad that she has cell service now because I can actually text her and we can, have video calls or whatever. She's literally 10 minutes from the house. So it's been great. But she is pregnant and she's due in December. So I'm going to be a grandma. So I've been super busy just sort of planning her shower with her husband's mom and just getting the invitations ready, and which, I had a ton of fun making. I created it in Canva and got those all sent out last weekend. So now I'm just fielding RSVP calls and texts and emails and all the things. So I'm really excited. It's a weird feeling. It's a different kind of excited than I've experienced because it's not it's excitement for myself to be a grandma, which is really weird. But it's excited for her to have this experience, and she is fully embracing all the things pregnancy related. You know, she's reading all the books and doing all the research, and they really want to do like the all natural, all the things. So, you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm just excited. It's going to be a new experience. And one of the things I was most excited about was to get a jogging stroller again. I had one with my son from the time that he was, I want to say like 3 until he started kindergarten. So that was just, you know, that was a set of memories that I'm looking forward to revisiting, I guess. But I realized the other day when I was looking at them that the child has to be 9 months to sit in a jogging stroller. So I have some time. But my husband and I went on, I'm literally just rambling here, so bear with me. My husband and I went on a walk yesterday with the dogs, and we live near a park, and we just kind of like, walked through the park, and there were kids playing and people with babies, and there's like flag football going on and all the things that happen at a park. And I told him, I said, I'm so glad that we chose this house, even though our kids were all but moved out, mostly moved out at the time, because we have this great park and this lovely neighborhood that I can, walk the baby in the stroller, and it's just kind of perfect the way things work out like that. So I'm excited. Okay. The next thing that I did in August, right towards the end of August, was I did a tarot and chat video with Benny over at Fool's Apprentice. I will link that in the description box. It was a ton of fun to get to know Benny more. We had chatted a few times in the past, just here and there. But it was fun to sit with him and, kind of get to interact with him and sort of, Benny has this like amazing energy in his videos, and it's at least, in the video that I made with him, it was 100% authentic. He is friendly and sincere and genuinely curious, and it was a delight to sit and talk with him. So I think my only regret was that I didn't ask him more questions. So that might be something for a future video. Maybe I'll invite him here because I would love to get to know him even more. Okay, so the next thing that I did in August was I went to the Northwest Tarot Symposium, or also known as NEWTS. So I've been wanting to go to this really since, I want to say 2021 or 2. I don't remember the exact year. Lisa and Dawn hosted a meetup the night before NEWTS was going to start a few years back. And so, a ton of people like flew in, drove in. We all met up. There was like a trade, tarot trade, and got to know each other. I'm terrible at those things. I have a hard time like mingling and I guess just inserting myself into the situations that these things present. I guess I'm not good at them. I'm better at just kind of like hanging out in one spot and letting people come to me, which I know is not, it doesn't come across as friendly, but that's what I need. So that's what I do. Anyway, all of that aside, ever since they hosted that, I've been wanting to come to and go to this symposium. It's a 3-day, it's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday event where it's all things tarot or metaphysical related. I've gone up on a Saturday or a Friday in previous years just to go to the metaphysical fair. Like there's a craft fair that, they host all these vendors. So as you would expect, there's crystals and tarot and all the things, right? All the handmade goodies. So I've done that a couple times, but I haven't actually attended any of the talks. So this year I thought, I'm going to pay for one day. So I paid for Friday. And I thought if it's awful or if I'm bored or if I'm just really uncomfortable, I can leave. Like it's, no pressure. So I drove up. It's about 2 hours from here. It was in Portland. I drove up and arrived around 5 o'clock. Not that that matters, but I'm an early dinner eater. So I arrived, checked in, and immediately went down. It was nice because this particular hotel has an in-hotel restaurant. So I thought that's perfect. I don't have to drive out anywhere else. I don't have to drive around town, which I'm okay with, but you know, I already had nerves just being there by myself and like never having done this before. I didn't know what to expect. So just like the race where I went by myself and did the thing by myself, this was also very challenging for me, which is good for me. Like I recognize that it's good for me, which is why I've been signing myself up to do these things. All of that to say, I went to dinner. I'll insert a couple pictures. Dinner was lovely. Like it was so good. And I ordered myself a glass of wine, which again, I normally wouldn't do, but it was perfect because I was at the hotel. I didn't have to drive anywhere after. So I enjoyed dinner and I was almost over full by the time I finished eating, but I ordered dessert anyway because I still had some wine left. And I had my safety net was that I took my Kindle with me. So I just sat there and I read. The restaurant was not busy, so I didn't feel bad about like just hanging out. But yeah, I just read, and the waitress was lovely. She chatted with me, and you know, it was everything that I had hoped it would be, but wasn't sure it could be. So it was perfect. So yeah, then I just went back up to my room and I watched a few reruns of The Office, as one does when they're staying in a hotel, if they're me. And then I went to sleep and woke up early. The first talk was going to start at 8, I believe, 8 or 8:30, I don't remember. And the restaurant opened at 7, so I got up at 6, showered, got ready, and went down to breakfast, which was delightful. I don't think I took a picture of my food, which, whatever, like, do people do that still? I don't know. I did take a picture of my coffee, though, because the whole ambiance in the restaurant was perfect, and it's not often, I don't know if I've ever, well, yeah, I guess maybe, I don't know. It certainly doesn't happen often that I travel and stay in a hotel by myself. So having this experience of ordering my coffee and sitting there quietly, I did take my Kindle again just in case, although I don't think I really read very much because I didn't have a ton of time. But yeah, just enjoying the breakfast. And again, the waiter was beautiful and kind and friendly. So another perfect, experience in the books for me. So once I finished breakfast, blah, blah, blah. I'm giving you too many details. I recognize that. Anyway, got down to the room where the speakers would be, and I checked in. They had like a whole table of swag that you could pick up, and turned around. I had my hands full. Turned around. There were probably 10-ish tables, like big round tables in this room, and several of them already had people sitting at them, and most of them seemed to be engaged with each other, talking, which is great. But it was like this moment of like middle school lunchroom panic where I was like, okay, where do I sit? And then I turned and I looked at the table closest to me, and there were 2 women sitting there, and they were both just grinning, looking at me. And I was like, okay, well, this is welcoming. So I was like, can I sit here? And they were like, yes, sit down, please. And they immediately, one of them, her name is Shelly. I won't give much more information than that, but she asked, she said, are you the creator of Little Bird Tarot? And you guys, it made my heart flutter because it was just this moment of like, wow, nobody knows me here. And yeah, I'm recognized from this channel. They watch YouTube. So hi, if you're watching, hi. The other gal is Andrea, and Shelly had driven up to meet Andrea. They had previously met, I think, through Instagram, if I remember correctly. So this was their first time meeting, and so they were spending the weekend together, and like not together, but like, chilling out, hanging out as friends. So I just kind of crashed that little party of theirs, and we just stayed at the same table for the entire day. And the whole experience of getting to hear people talk about tarot, and I got to hear Matt Aron. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I got to hear him give his talk. He talked about his book. He talked about mediumship. And I will tell you, because I know sometimes people say things and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought the same thing. I had one of his books and I barely cracked it open because I struggled with the photo of him on the book. Call me shallow, but it portrayed him in a way that my brain assigned a word. I'll just say it. He looked kind of like, I'm just going to say it. He kind of looked like a douche. He looked kind of like one of those guys who's like super full of himself, thinks he knows everything, like super over the top woo. That's where my brain went. But I will tell you from hearing him talk, he is not that at all. And I think I will be rebuying his book because I do want to revisit, what he had said. And I had the opportunity to buy the book there and have him sign it. But I felt, given what I had previously thought of him, I felt that was kind of an icky thing to do for myself. So I didn't feel okay asking him for his signature. Anyway, I'm weird, whatever. So I'll be repurchasing that. But I heard there were talks on how to ask the right questions when reading tarot. There was a lovely speaker there. I'll post her info, both here on the screen, hopefully, if I remember, and down below, because she talked about runes, which, I love runes. I'm into them. I won't say I study them. I think at some point, I think I will study them. But right now, I'm just kind of having fun with them, pulling runes, seeing what they mean. But I kind of hope she writes a book. She didn't mention it, but I would buy it if she did. So that was beautiful. And then about halfway through the day, we broke off to go to lunch, and it was the restaurant that catered it, and it was lovely. It was Mexican food, and it was just delicious. It was so good. It was very well put together. They also had a tarot trade table in that room. So, of course, I took several of my decks. And lesson learned, you guys, when you go to these things and you have decks to trade, do not lay all your decks out on the table and walk away. Why I did that, I don't know. I don't really have any regrets because I really didn't want to bring any of them home. But every time I went back to the table, I went with 7 decks and I came home with 2, which is perfect. That's all those were the only 2 that I really saw while I was there. So I have no regrets in that way. But every time I walked up to the table, throughout the day, I felt bad looking at a deck or taking a deck to my own table to look at it. I felt weird. Like no one else really knew that I had set out 7 decks. So anyway, note to self, next time, keep the decks with me, keep the decks with you in your bag, whatever. Put one down if you find one and take it and then walk away. So I did take my Little Bird Tarot. I left that out on the table. No one asked about it, but that's okay. Plenty of people I'm sure saw it, whether or not, it spurred interest or not, I don't know. But just having it on the table, I felt like, exposed it a little bit, and it was good for me to have it sitting there just to kind of feel like, I did something. Look, I did a thing. So what else? Uh-oh. A hummingbird just about got stuck in a spider web. I hope she's okay. Okay, I'm gonna go check, make sure she flew away. She did fly away, but now the question is, do I move that spider web? It's literally in this section where they fly through. Oh, there she is. You know what? I like birds more than I like spiders. I think I'm gonna go move that cobweb. He can remake it. I'll be right back. Okay, day saved. Okay, what else? So yeah, the day came and went. It was just a fun experience, and I absolutely intend to attend next year as well. And I want to do all 3 days because it was actually really sad leaving everybody there, knowing that I was like missing out on more talks and all the things. So there's been a couple people on Instagram who said that they want to go next year too. So I'm hoping to get a group together, even if it's just a few of us, that we can go together. And it's kind of fun because a couple of them are creators, deck creators. So anyway, okay, on to the next thing. Little Bird Tarot pre-order came and went, and then came and went again. I put it up for 30 days, dates were posted, all the things, and so I closed it on September 6th, And it was funny because multiple people, you know, like when the first person came through, I was like, oh, sorry, you know, it's closed. I did it for a reason because I have a job and I'm trying to, like, you know, also live my life. But then multiple, like more people came through, messaged me and were like, oh, I missed it for this reason or that reason. And I was like, you know what? I had a couple of days before I was going to order the deck anyway, so I decided to reopen it for like, I don't know, 36 hours or something like that. So I did, and yeah, several more orders came through, so I was super grateful that I decided to, you know, lighten up a little bit. I have a hard time breaking rules. I'm very much a rule follower. That's kind of the Capricorn side of me. I guess that's my rising sign, whatever. That aside. Super grateful. Just the whole thing went out, you know, went without a hitch, and I ordered the decks yesterday. So yeah, that's where we are. So let's talk about new decks that I have brought in. Let's talk about the one that I will not be keeping first. I don't know why I bought this deck, you guys. I don't know why. I got the deck and the book. The colors are pretty or something. I don't know. I just thought, yeah, but just the whole concept of this deck is not for me. It's not. Like what? This is not my style. I don't know why I bought it. If you want it and you're willing to pay shipping, like, I don't know, $10, I'll ship it to you. I don't want it. So I'm not even gonna go through it. Anyway, that's the first one that I bought. The next one that I bought, this is not in order. This is, you know, all the decks between August and now that I've bought, now being, what, September 9th, 10th, 11th? Wow, losing days. The next deck I bought, I think I got this back in August, was the Yellow House Tarot. This deck is all over Instagram and YouTube right now for good reason. It's gorgeous. The creator is lovely. She has a beautiful Instagram page, and I'll just do it like this. Just, it's a fun deck. You know, it's very unique. There's not anything else out on the market that I've seen that's like it. And just the creator's energy is beautiful. So if you don't follow her already, I highly recommend going and finding her. I will link her info below. She is on to, or I think almost on to, I think she's just started running a second edition of this deck. I'm not sure what changes, if any, she's done, so you'll have to check that out for yourself. But love this deck. It's beautiful. I've not used it, so I can't like say like how it is to work with, but you know, it's tarot, it's a deck, it's beautiful. I imagine it will work just fine. That is the Yellow House Tarot by Heidi Dawn Nickerson. All right. The next one I bought. Okay. So this was a deck that I've been wanting for years. So this was a unicorn deck. And it's kind of gone on and off my wish list. Like, I'm like, you know, it's not really my thing, but I just really like the deck. And I just thought, you know what? I have play money. I'm going to get it if I find it. So the very first time I saw this on eBay, it was going for a price, but it was very early on in my tarot journey, if you will. And so the price they were asking for it, I thought was astronomical. Turns out that was the cheapest I've ever seen it. So I missed out, unfortunately. Do you want to see the deck while I talk about it? Yes, you do. So this is the Victorian Flower Oracle by Babastudio. I do have the book as well. That is somewhere not here on the table. And so ever since then, it's been, you know, much more, listed for much more than the first time I saw it. So, you know, big regrets and all that. So it came up, I had it on my saved search, came up, and it was about the same price as the first one that I had seen years back. The problem was that this person was in the UK, and it said that they didn't ship to the US. And I was like, well, I bet they will if I ask nicely. And yeah, they did. I sent her a message, or them, a message and just said, you know, it's one I've been looking for. Would you be willing to sell it, ship it, whatever, all the things? And they were like, sure. It was not even like, I didn't even have to like talk them into it. So they shipped it out to me. I received everything as was. And the only thing I didn't get with this was the box, which, you know, unfortunate, but that's okay. I have kept up the saved search because I feel like sometimes people will sell the empty box of certain things, just which is weird, but also for this exact moment, you know, eventually I might find a box for it, but I'm okay if not. It's just pretty. I love it. I don't have any other Babastudio's decks, nor do I have any desire to have any of them. I just thought it was pretty, so I bought it. So that is the Victorian Flower Oracle by Babastudios. Okay, so the next thing, I did buy a second deck on eBay, but we're going to save that for last because that is the one I was going to talk to you about, the little ritual I did with it. So the next thing I brought in, this was on the swag table at the Northwest Tarot Symposium. There were several to choose from. I think all the others were Lenormand, and I'm just not into Lenormand right now. So I snagged this one. I think the artwork is really sweet. I don't know how I'll use it, or if I will. It might not stay in my collection. I love the artwork. I don't love the keywords at the bottom, and I could definitely, like, I could cut them off, but I don't know. They're cute. It feels very, it feels like a grandma deck to me, which is, you know, it's a neutral word. Like it feels like maybe one that I might enjoy when I'm babysitting the grandchild. So we'll see. I'll hold on to it for now because I do really enjoy the artwork. It's very late 90s, early 2000s. Again, it's not like an insult. It just is what it reminds me of. And it has kind of a warm energy, so I'm happy that I got it for free, essentially. That's all I have to say, because I've really only had it for about a week. Look how sweet this is. I love this one. And healing. I feel like there's one or two in here. I wasn't really paying attention to the words. I feel like there might be one in here. It says something about God. I don't know. I don't remember. If you want a full walkthrough and look at the guidebook of that one, let me know. I think this one's older, maybe. I'm not sure. Let's look and see quickly. Oh, 2020. Oh, 2014. So yeah, a little bit older, 10 years or so. Okay, so one of the first, or the first of two decks that I brought home from Newt's is the Ink Witch Tarot deck. You guys, I was so excited to see this on the table. I snagged it so fast. Like there were literally other people at the table and I was like, oh, can I squeeze in? I don't know if that's rude or not, but I'm like, I saw a thing. The people there all had something else in their hand. And I was like, I am going to pick up this deck and take it home with me. So I need you to move. Anyway, grabbed this up. Everything is included. It was still in order. I mean, the Fool was in the back, so that's probably the way it came, if I had to assume. You know, the little cards and everything were in there still, so everything was there. And when I got home, I immediately went and bought the expansion that's available. So I'm thrilled to have this. It's been on and off my wish list for a while. It's not really my art style. It's one that I kind of struggle with as far as other decks that I've had. But because it's been on and off my wish list and there are so many cards in here that are just really sweet and I enjoy the color palette, I just wanted to try it, you know? And when I flipped through it, I didn't get kind of the like, oh, I'm bored kind of feel. You know, I got the, oh, I like this. It gave me a little bit of excitement. So I'm thrilled to have it. I'm excited to have the expansion and I'm excited to see what job this decides it will have. So that is the Ink Witch. It's probably going to need to get a bag because I don't want to wreck this box, especially with the expansion. They're not going to fit in. They are not all going to fit in this box. So thrilled with this little find. the last deck, so I just had one in my hand pretty much the whole day. And I just thought, well, that's fine. You know, I don't need to bring 7 decks home just because I brought 7 decks. I was fine with that. Sipping coffee, pardon. But literally on my way out, I looked over and there was I want to say first, not the indie, but the first edition, I believe. I did a little research. I think this is the first edition of the Wild Unknown. And this is another deck that I've been super curious about. I actually bought the mini at one point on Amazon and then returned it because I was like, meh. But I don't really like minis. So I just, I grabbed it, didn't even think twice, grabbed it on my way out the door, and it now belongs to me. And I'm intrigued by the deck. I'm intrigued by why so many people love it. The artwork is, again, not really my style per se. So this was one of the cards. I watched Ethany's walkthrough. I think she did she said between the first and second edition, but I'm not sure if the first edition meant the indie or if this is actually the second edition. And actually, I know this is the first edition because the book says so. Let me go get it. No, I'm not going to go get it. I will confirm with a thumbs up on the screen if it is, because the book is upstairs and I don't want to run up there because I've done that like 8 times trying to prep for this video. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. First edition, first editions are going for like $8 on eBay. So this isn't like it's not like a collector's thing, but as I flipped through this deck, I already knew that this would be my magical workings deck. I've spoken about it a few times. Carrie did a video a few months back about how she uses tarot for magical spells or, magical workings, spell work, that kind of thing. And I had originally thought I might use my Paulina tarot. And, I still could. But when I pulled this out, I thought, no, this is it. Because it reminds me a little bit, especially this card, it reminds me a little bit of this other deck, Cursed Auguries. It reminds me a little bit of Cursed Auguries, which I rehomed. I couldn't get behind it. It was too icky. Beautiful, but too icky, and I'd never used it. So I thought this would be a great alternative. There's no ick factor, but it's still a little bit, feels witchy to me. So I'm excited to use it and see how it works out. These are the backs. I know one of the other editions had a different back. If you're curious, these are the backs. I don't know. I kind of don't care, to be honest. I was just curious. Okay. Now I'm going to save the last deck for last. So I'm going to jump into books and then we'll come back to the last deck because I had a whole experience with it and I really want to spend some time talking about it. So, books that I read. I think I only finished one book in August and September. I've mentioned it before. I'm reading several books. I'm currently reading Haggitude, which I've not yet finished, but I'm almost through. Oh, I read The Secret Book of Flora Lee. I'll put an image of it on the screen. Again, it's somewhere else, not here. So I really enjoyed the book. It was beautifully written. I enjoyed the story, start to finish. There was a section in the middle where they kind of jump back and forth between times throughout the entire book, but there was one section where the characters were children and the author the way she wrote about it was just magical and beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. It was my bedtime deck. It was my bedtime book, and it was a nice way to unwind from the day and fall asleep thinking about. So I highly recommend. 5 stars, 10 out of 10 recommend. Yeah, that's I guess the whole point of this book was that the main character had a little sister who went missing during World War II. And she, as an adult, this woman works in a bookshop and a book comes in, and the book is about a story that she told her little sister that she thought they were the only two that knew. It was a magical land that she had made up to soothe her little sister. And so the fact that this book, was about this magical land, she started to wonder if the author was her sister. And this is very early on in the book. That's the whole premise of the book. So not giving anything away. But it was fun. And I know what happened. I kind of had an inkling, but to be completely honest, no, it surprised me at the end how everything turned out. So again, couldn't recommend enough. What else? Is that the only thing? Okay, so I guess I usually talk about my guides for the month, but I didn't bring any of the cards down. I didn't bring any of my notes down. So we're going to skip that this month. Just know that I'm still doing it. I'm pulling a card every week from the Sacred, Wild and Sacred Feminine deck to be my guide for the week. Taking notes, writing in my journal, still a lovely practice. I mean, at this point, I'll definitely finish, 2025, with this practice. So, okay. Let's just go on to one of the things I purchased at the Northwest Tarot Symposium. This crystal, Golden Healer. Look how freaking gorgeous. So it was funny because I hadn't really planned on buying anything. I guess it doesn't really help to, I wanted you to be able to see. I don't know if you can. I wish this camera focused a little better. Anyway, I've been looking for a skull for this season, like a brown, like golden, orangey, yellowy, something that didn't feel like end of summer, that something, it could be September through November, really. And I'd looked on Etsy, but I just have such a hard time buying skull, crystals in general online, because it's like, A, you can't really feel their energy, and B, you don't really know how big they are, and the colors are never quite like they are online, and I just hadn't really found one that I loved. So while we were there and I was just looking, I looked over, and this lady, I've decided her name is Margot, she was just looking at me, and she was quite expensive, at least in my mind, quite expensive. But I walked up, I picked her up, I asked, she had like a sticker across her head that said Golden Healer and her price. And I'd never heard of the term Golden Healer. I didn't know that was a crystal. So I asked the vendor, I was like, oh, what crystal is this? She's like, oh, it's a Golden Healer. And I was like, yeah, I see that it says Golden Healer, thinking that was just like a color description. And I was like, but what crystal is it? And she was like, a Golden Healer. Like, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know all the crystals. Anyway, she wasn't exactly rude, but she was also like, okay, idiot. Anyway, I walked away. The lady was like, I don't know. It bugged me that she answered me that way. So I walked away. I put her down and walked away. And I only got about 2 tables down. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I don't care how that lady answered my question. I really want her. So I went back and purchased her. And she is now mine. And I love her. And she sits on my altar. She is now my end of summer into fall skull. So that is my prized purchase for the end of summer. Okay, I literally have nothing else to talk about, and I'm like jumping at the bit to talk to you about this last deck that I brought in. So this is another eBay find. It's one that I've been looking for a while. Another sip of coffee. All the things came with it. The bag, not this bag. I could have gotten I could have brought all the things, but I didn't. I just grabbed stuff. So this is Madame Lydia Wilhelmina's Tarot of the Monsters, Macabre, and blah, 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 and all the things. It came with the box. It came with the bag, the original bag. It came with the title card, and it came with the smaller black guidebook. And I just purchased on Amazon the larger grimoire, so I will have the complete set, this set. And I just saw on Instagram this morning, actually, that the creator has posted that she will be doing a 3rd edition of this deck on Kickstarter in October. So keep an eye on that. I don't think she linked anything yet, but if you can't find, I feel like she's got 2 Instagrams and her website is a little confusing. If you need links to something, let me know. I've got links. So This deck, when I brought this in and I flipped through it, first of all, it had a smell. It smelled like a lady's drawer with perfume. A perfumed drawer, okay, if you will. It wasn't a bad smell, but it was an unused smell. So that was the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed was the energy around this deck was stagnant, I guess, for lack of a better word. And it gave me a little bit of an ick. The very first time I flipped through, I was like, but that wasn't surprising to me because I was on the fence I've been on the fence about this deck. I haven't been sure if I've wanted it, if I'd use it, how I'd use it. So I've just not really been very serious about looking for it on eBay. But when it came up, and it's been very difficult to get information from the creator. I know she's going through illnesses and in and out of the hospital, so to no fault of hers whatsoever, but it has been difficult. So, I even signed up for the newsletter, and twice now people have said, oh, I just received my, the last printing or the most recent printing of this deck. And I'm like, hello, I'm on the newsletter. How am I missing this? So I put it on eBay, saved it as a search, and when it came up, I didn't even blink. I immediately clicked buy. So when it came, gave me a little bit of the ick. So I put it back in its bag, back in its box, and I set it aside, knowing that I didn't have time to really flip through it and get a sense of it. So put it away. A couple days went by, and I pulled it out again, and the scent, overwhelmed me again. And again, the kind of ick and sad energy just kind of hit me in the face. I don't really have an explanation better than that. And it didn't feel bad. It didn't feel evil or scary or spooky, but it felt neglected, which gave me the ick. I don't know, it just did. I'm going to set this card aside because I have a question. So again, I wrapped it up, put it in its bag, and I hung it on the hooks where I have my bagged decks. There's 6 hooks where I keep the decks I like to work with. So because it was giving me the ick, I decided to do a binding spell on it. So I did a quick and dirty binding spell, inside its bag. Just anything that's attached to this deck, I want to stay with the deck. I don't want it wandering around my house. I don't want it attaching to anyone or anything. So that's what I did. And I hung it up and I went to bed. Later that night, middle of the night, I woke up to what I can only describe as scratching on the wall, because I share the wall. One of my bedroom walls shares the wall where I hang these decks. And so it spooked me. How would, that's a spooky thing to wake up to. It wasn't anything I'd heard before. People could explain it away as, oh, maybe it was a bird on the roof or a squirrel. I've had those things on my roof. We have them on our roof all the time. It didn't sound like that. It sounded like scratching on the wall, not the roof, above my head. So I was like, okay. Again, it didn't feel bad or malevolent, but it spooked me. So I went to work the next day. I didn't really have time to do anything with it, so I sort of just set it aside. I was like, okay, I'm not freaked out by it. It doesn't feel I didn't feel like I was in danger, so I just kind of set it aside. Well, I work with someone who also uses very sparingly. They also use tarot. They don't know anything about it. They don't know the meaning of the cards, but they have a deck. They've played with it before. So, every once in a while we'll talk about tarot things. And I was telling them about this experience. And I was like, so the full moon is coming up on the 9th of September. I said, so I'm going to cleanse the deck. I'm going to lay it all out, put it in the moonlight, and get rid of everything. And they were like, well, what if it just wanted to tell you something? What if it was just trying to get your attention? What if it has a message to give you? And I was like, excuse me, why are you so smart? Why do you know these things? Why did I not think of this? So I was excited. I was my stomach was flipping. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to get home and have a conversation with this deck. And I should have put this in order based on the questions. Maybe I'll do that really quick. Okay, I've pulled out the cards that when I shuffled popped out while I was doing this Q&A with the deck. So to start this, I did a protection circle around myself because I was concerned that maybe I was underestimating whatever it was that was attached to this deck. So I did my protection circle, and then I proceeded to ask questions. First question I asked was who this deck identifies as, and I drew the Three of Swords, which just, solidified my original feeling that she was sad, neglected, lonely, had put away, was misused, or little used, not used enough. So I was like, okay. So I said, so what happened? What got you here? And I got the Ace of Cups. Now I will say, I was not reading these cards as specifically tarot. I was reading them intuitively. I was really going off of the images because I felt like if the deck was going to communicate with me, or the spirit was going to communicate with me, it was going to give it to me in images, because how can you answer someone with tarot meanings, right? Necessarily. So why did she identify as the Three of Swords? What happened? And what I got from this card, the Ace of Cups, was that whoever had used her before had poured all of this emotion, potentially trauma and like sadness into her, was asking all these questions that she just got all of this energy and she just got weighed down by it, and it made her feel sick. It made her feel like she had to purge everything. But because, the user before was constantly asking questions and requiring things of her and just pouring all this ick energy, she felt too full, overfull, and so it made her sick. So that's why she identified as the Three of Swords. So the next question I asked was, what would you like me to do to help you? And I got the Five of Wands, which to me was draw it out, get it out, take it away, make me feel better, draw it out. With this man, to me, this is like very vampire-esque, where he's sucking the blood or the life force out of him. She wanted me to pull out that energy. I was like, okay. Now these are, I will tell you, I was shuffling the cards, or not even shuffling, I was overhand shuffling the cards. And every time I asked a question, a single card came out. I didn't struggle to get an answer. And a single card came every single time. So I was just, convinced that I was actually communicating with this deck. And if you find that insane, you are free to stop the video now, because there's not much left to this video besides me talking about this experience. Otherwise, I'm glad, if you're still sitting here, I'm glad you decided to stay. Okay, so the next question I asked, do you have someone attached to you? And she said, yes. She gave me the star. Now, whether or not this specific, I don't think that this specific person is someone that's attached, but I feel like it was saying this entity, this spirit was what was attached. And because it's this star, I didn't get a bad feeling. I felt like it was, a spirit, but so my next question was, do you want the spirit to remain attached? And I brought out my pendulum and I used it over this card, and I got the answer, no, it does not want it attached. So, before I proceeded, I wanted to know if there were any other spirits attached. So I asked if there were any others attached to make themselves known, and I got the Deary Squirrel. I popped open the guidebook at this point because I wanted to know what this was. This is obviously an extra card in the deck. In the book, it says Dreary, Dreary. I don't know if this is a misprint. I watched a couple walkthroughs and no one in the videos that I watched noticed that it said Deary and not Dreary. but it does say Deary on the two that I watched. So I don't know. If you know if this is a misprint, I'm super curious, or if that was intentional or whatever. Regardless, the energy, the other spirit attached to this deck is a trickster, which I thought was funny and lighthearted, and I didn't feel icky about that at all. I actually really liked it, which, because of this card, I will explain more at the end. But because of this card, I knew I didn't want to do a straight cleanse. I didn't want to purge the entire deck of all the things, right? So I set this card aside knowing that I wanted to come back to this concept, and we'll get to that. So because it was a trickster, I asked, how do I know I can trust you? You're a trickster. You have this energy attached to you. How do I know I can trust you if I use you? And I got the Six of Cups. And to me, this was a very reassuring card. This was a, go ahead and tell me all the things. I have no ill intent. Tell me your secrets. I'll keep them for you. Keep them close. It's got, the spirit's got its hand on my shoulders as a reassurance of, yes, I like to play jokes, but I'm not mean. And I would never do anything to hurt you. That was what came across for me. So, let's see. I did ask 2 other questions, which were private. I won't get into those, but it was interesting, the 2 cards that popped out for me. And actually that's true. I did get 2 cards when I asked that question, which I thought was interesting. Again, it's irrelevant to this video. So the next question was, why don't you want the star spirit attached to you? And I got the Page of Swords. And for me, that felt very, that felt like, even though that spirit isn't malevolent, I felt that it wasn't necessarily there for good either. Like, maybe it didn't have full control over its actions, or for whatever reason, right? Like, it felt a little bit shady, like a little bit hidden. And I got the impression, obviously, with the Page of Swords, that she was very intelligent. And I didn't want that in my deck. I don't need an intelligent, unwise spirit attached to my tarot. So I pulled the star out, and I pulled the Page of Swords out as well. So now I have 3 cards set aside. And then the last question I asked was, what else can I do to make you feel whole again? And I got the Knight of Wands, which I thought was interesting, because the way that I had done the binding spell for this deck in the first place was with my Athame. And I had pulled out my Athame this before I had done this, to do the protection spell, or the protection circle. So for me, this felt like it wanted me to banish this spirit, and it wanted me to use my Athame, which I don't usually use my Athame, but for whatever reason, that was what I felt called to pull out. So that's what I did, both in doing the binding spell and the protection circle. So the whole thing was just incredible, the whole experience. This took me about an hour to get through. So once I did that, I pulled the whole deck, except for these 3 cards, pulled these aside, and I did a ritual where basically I said, I want to share this, actually. I will copy paste the spell, the ritual. So this was the first part, and you're probably not going to be able to read it. But this is what I'll be adding to my journal so that I can keep it and use it again in the future. I will copy paste this below as well. This was the incantation for cleansing a used tarot deck. So it's I did a little description here, and then the purpose of it, the method, the incantation, and really this is just so that I can use it in the future. I know exactly what it's for. And like, eventually one day when I die, if one of my kids is into witchy things, like, they can like look at this and be like, oh my gosh, this is what she used it for. So I just wrote, the ritual is designed to clear the previous owner's energy and personal imprints from a used tarot deck while preserving the deck's essential spiritual nature. Think of it as a factory reset that wipes the personal data but keeps the deck's soul and inherent power intact. Which that was what I really wanted. I really wanted its essence still there without having any baggage. So super thrilled with the way this turned out. I used juniper smoke to cleanse the deck. I just have juniper sticks. Juniper because that's a traditional Norwegian cleansing tool. I don't use sage. I don't use Palo Santo. So juniper it was. So juniper, I've got this image of juniper in the back. But so I did that, cleansed it, and then I took the bigger deck, and I put that on my windowsill to be cleansed once I had done that ritual, so that I put the intent of what the moonlight would be doing for the deck. Then with these 3 cards, and actually I don't think I included this one. I think this one was left with the bigger part of the deck, but I'll leave this here. Actually, I don't, because I already asked you the question. So with these 2 cards, then I had a separate ritual for banishing unwanted spirits or energy from specific cards. So the little write-up that I did at the top was, sometimes individual cards within a deck may harbor unwanted spiritual attachments, negative energy, or entities that don't serve your highest good. This can occur in used decks where previous owners may have inadvertently attracted or invited spirits, or in any deck where certain cards consistently feel off or carry heavy disruptive energy. So then again, I wrote the purpose, the method, and it's just so poorly formatted. And I used the juniper smoke again on these and did my incantation. And then with these 2 cards, I put them on a separate windowsill that night with my athame, with the pendulum, with a couple crystals that I felt really strongly needed to be there to sort of like keep everything together and washed away. The coolest part, I don't know about coolest, because the entire thing was very cool. It was an amazing experience, but this deck no longer has that smell that it came with, and it's been less than a week. It does not have that smell. It smells like juniper smoke, slightly. It's not like I didn't soak it in smoke. So it has a faint scent of smoke, but nothing else. So whatever was in this deck is not there anymore. And every once in a while you do something that's witchy and you're like, oh my hell, it worked. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. So thank you for sitting through that very long explanation. I was so excited to tell somebody who actually would understand what I was talking about and appreciate the work that went into it. So I think that's all I have now that we're an hour in. Thank you so much for sitting here with me and indulging me in my stories and my catch-ups and all the things. I appreciate you guys being here, and I will catch up with you next week.